Hi, Scott.
Hi, Scott. Nice to see you. We're now targeting how we take this technology from where it is today, which is an app that not many people know about, and those who try say it's great. We want to take that to the masses, basically.
So we have a couple of distribution strategies. There's direct to consumer, there's going after OEMs, there's going after developers themselves and signing deals with them on the iOS platform, for example. We just would like to hear your thoughts in how to best penetrate the market.
So in using the app myself, I'm not sure that a direct-to-consumer app by itself, which is kind of a better keyboard, a much better keyboard, it feels like this should be part of an app that has a lot of typing. Like when I think about Evernote, for instance, it seems like almost an ideal fit because that's what you're doing is you're entering lots of data on your cell phone. So if there's any any apps where there's a lot of data entry or where data entry is, somewhat compromised, like, I don't know, maybe maps would be a good one as well because you're typically putting an address in your car. And so like if you don't have to look at the keyboard, that's a good thing. But in general, when I looked at it, it feels like something that that's much more a part of a larger app as opposed to an app in and of itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and actually, and that's good feedback. Thanks, Scott. So we have two things that we've done here. One, we announced recently that we provided an SDK. Basically, we provide our keyboard as a component for other app developers to use. So rather than ourselves trying to build applications for every different market, we're providing the component of Flexi for them to integrate. And we can do, we've done a number of deals where actually they pay us for the benefit of using Flexi, and or they can also provide it as an add-on to their app. So if they see it as something interesting, the consumers can go and buy it directly, and we do some kind of revenue partnership with them. Interesting you mentioned the navigation and the maps thing. So actually, one of the deals I'm negotiating right now is with a car manufacturer, and they're interested in actually putting Flexi as something that can power the dashboard of the car, because a lot of cars coming up in the next few years will have touchscreen enabled input mechanisms on the dashboard for the navigation and infotainment systems. And so these are some of the deals we're exploring with some manufacturers.
That makes sense. I have a question for you because as I was using the product, there's a little bit of user education around swiping right, swiping left, swiping down that I think might be a little bit of a barrier when you're going in to talk to Google Maps or Evernote. Does the technology only work if you have if you buy into the whole thing? I mean, it reminds me a little bit of the Palm Pilot and kind of the new, like a new way of writing that I have to learn. And so I think that might be a barrier to adoption. So do you remember what I'm talking about? Like the
absolutely.
Are you talking about like a triangle? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the graffiti system. So exactly. The way our system works is we have the user interface and also a very powerful recognition engine, but the two don't have to go together necessarily. And as a matter of fact, you may have tried the application on the iPhone. On Android, where we can actually replace the keyboard system-wide, we also provide a layout that has the familiar spacebar and backspace keys, and the shift key, and all the things that a novice user would expect to see on a touchscreen keyboard. So we don't have to alienate the user at all. We don't have to have a learning curve just to begin with. The nice thing is that we can use the swipe gestures at the same time as having the spacebar and the backspace keys, and eventually, if the user is familiar enough with the gestures, they can get rid of the spacebar with a simple gesture.
Is the company, is the entire company this one product, Flexi, or is there other kind of ancillary products that you guys do that other than the keyboard itself?
So good question, and a lot of people ask why we have Flexi and we have Syntellia as two different brand names. So our vision for Flexi is we see the problem of typing on smartphones and tablets as a big a big issue and a big frustration for users. And we want to build Flexi as the brand that customers recognize in that market for their typing needs. Now, we see also a lot of other devices adopting touchscreens, whether that's cars, automotive partners, smartwatches are coming up. Your refrigerator will have a touchscreen eventually as well. And we see Syntellia as the provider of text input solutions across these markets. And it's not going to be Flexi exactly as it is on a smartphone. We will have to adjust it for the different use cases. So we want Syntellia to be the brand that provides these solutions for different markets and different industries.
So it would also seem that the smartphone manufacturers would be a great distribution alternative as well. I mean, this is such a core component. I forget there was the guy that invented intermittent windshield wipers that made hundreds of millions of dollars because that innovation got put into every single car manufacturer. Is this something that would work with the kind of the operating? I mean, it just feels like the keyboard is just something so foundational to the device itself, right?
100%, and eventually we believe, the windshield wiper is a great example. We feel we have the kind of technology that should really power every smartphone and every tablet's input. And we are talking to a lot of hardware manufacturers for embedding our technology. That's the eventual goal, is basically to be on every handset. In the meantime, we have distribution channels that are let's say, easier or maybe smaller in some way, but we can get to consumers faster than having to negotiate a huge deal early on. But we have seen a huge amount of interest from OEMs and manufacturers for what we have, and they've approached us. We haven't approached them, so that's encouraging.
And as you mentioned, Scott, the keyboard is a core part of the user experience. So sorry to interrupt. There was a little bit of lag there, I think.
No, it is. In fact, it's so key that I wonder if you'll be willing to withstand acquisition offers. If it really is that sensational, I would think that it's such a part of the user experience that one of a number of companies may have to own it before they would do like a deal with you. In other words, it's one of those weird situations where you'd like to do a deal with everybody, but just the prospect of Google buying my keyboard if I'm Samsung is not a great proposition for me. You know what I mean? Like, so you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. You can't really get all of them because they worry about one of them buying it, right?
Yeah, and look, we feel there is other keyboard companies even from before the smartphones that have managed to actually license keyboard technology to multiple handset manufacturers. I don't know if you remember T9 from when you had these feature phones with the 9 buttons and you would use that to type SMS messages.
Right.
So that was an independent company that did that, and basically they managed to get that onto pretty much every handset at the time. So that's our vision. Now, we're a young startup, and so if some company really sees that as so core and so amazing as they should do, then it depends also on what kind of deal is on the table. We have an open mind, but our vision is not really to keep that exclusively in one application or one manufacturer or one handset, because we feel every user should be using this to type a lot faster and a lot easier than they currently do.
So one of the things that I think you should think about is that if the keyboard is so much better than other places, I think you should think about maybe a guerrilla way of sponsoring. How fast can you type with our technology versus a normal keyboard? Because I think that if there's something really differentiating about either the speed or the accuracy, it feels like normal consumers should be able to highlight that. Does that make sense?
Very true. And in fact, what's interesting is that we have blind people who are using Flexi every day now, thousands of them, and are typing as fast or sometimes faster as you and I can type. So we're always looking for ways to promote that more and more as we're growing, especially. But there's also a tricky subject to that, which is the fact that we're not just all about speed and words per minute. We're mostly about a comfortable typing experience. So The thing is, like when you're driving, for example, you'd rather just drive in a natural way and casual, an easy ride, rather than drive really fast like a maniac just to get home. So in a similar fashion, even though we can provide the speed for people who want to type really fast, we also want to provide this ease of use, and that is a little harder to convey.
So I don't know if you know, Scott, but actually when we started as a keyboard for blind and visually impaired users, and a lot of the research that we did early on as a company was with that market, and we were really surprised when we started looking at how fast people would type with Flexi. We were really surprised to suddenly see a few users breaking unofficially the Guinness record for the fastest typed text, and realizing that there's a blind guy somewhere who types faster than anybody on a smartphone using Flexi.
I think that's a great way to market the company, because it's, empirically, when you go in, you walk into a Google or an Evernote, you could say, we took 100 random people and put them on your keyboard versus our keyboard. We had them look at the keyboard, we had them not look at the keyboard, and Flexi beats it by 50% every time. Like the hard data around, because you got to think Dropbox and Evernote, like what they really care about is, more data getting into their system, and if you can empirically show them that this is a better keyboard, then I think that it's much easier to make the point about they should be using it, right? And right now, you just telling them that, I don't. And by the way, I think it's either having a contest or some guerrilla way of getting the word out, I think would be very beneficial to you guys.
Sounds great, and I think that's what we're going to be doing pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, hey, great to spend some more time with you, and I'll look forward to our next session.
Thank you.
Same here. Thank you, Scott.